Ahlan wa sahlan, marhaban, welcome back. Well, hard to believe, but we are making our way through the alphabet and we only have a few more letters to go. So in these next couple of lessons, we'll be cleaning up the remainder of the consonants and you'll have everything you need for your study of Arabic. Well, today we have 3 new consonants and they should sound pretty familiar to you. And the shapes of them are somewhat different, so we're going to take each one of them in turn. So let's start with our first consonant today. The name is fa, and as you can probably guess, it has the sound of F, just like in English. Find, first, forget, free. Okay? It's the same sound, and don't worry, this is one of those letters where we don't have a hard and a soft version of it. This is the only F sound that you're going to learn. All right, and the good thing is this is a letter that isn't going to change much in all of its forms. Okay, so how are we going to write this? Well, we're going to stay in the bottom portion of our line for this. And as you know, the remainder of our letters are connectors, so this one is going to connect. For fa, we want to begin with a small loop. Now it's important that we loop upwards. Watch what I mean. Like this, and then it's going to have a tail coming out. And fa will have 1 dot. There's only one version of this. It has 1 dot on the top, and that's it. Okay? Now the important reason why I say we want to curve upwards is so we don't confuse it with some of the things we've already seen. Let me show you what I mean. So this could be our fa at the beginning of a word. In the middle of a word, it's just going to connect like this. So if you were writing a word, you'd come up, make the loop, and make the dot here. Now you notice it's fairly narrow. Okay? I don't want to put it completely together where I don't have anything in the middle, but I also don't want this to be fat and round. Okay? Now the important reason why it loops upwards like this, the line is down here and the loop is up, should be obvious. You can probably guess, because if I did it in the other direction, suppose I went the wrong way and made it like this, let's say, well, it's going to start to look like what? Well, that looks like a meme. Remember, we're told that meme is the one underneath the rug. So that is not what we want to do. So this nice little loop, okay? We did the beginning of a word, middle of a word. What if it comes at the end of a word or by itself? Well, that's no problem. Fa just takes a little bit of a tail. There's a tiny little flourish to it like this. And this is fairly simple. Okay, so this is the only form we have with this 1 loop and this 1 dot. So we'll look at it in some words, and these will probably be pretty easy to pronounce because, as I say, you're going to pronounce it just like an F sound in English. Let's look at some specific words. All right, here we have 3 actual words, and I think the fa probably jumps right out to you on these. Let's look at our first word. You'll see it has 2. One right here and a final one right here. They look very similar. Of course, this one is not connected to anything. And, of course, this is why we make our loops big enough to see through so we don't confuse with something like this. You can see if you made this really narrow, it could start to confuse with this letter here. But we know this is a Z. So this word, zafaf, zafaf. Okay, zafaf is a wedding celebration. Okay. This one, we have how many fas? Of course, just 1, and we know right off the bat just 1 because there's only 1 letter here that has a single dot. It's at the beginning of a word, and we know the rest of the letters. Fa, ta, that is a wow. It's in the middle of a word, so it's likely going to be a long vowel u, ra, and tamavuta. Fatura, fatura. Fatura is a bill, like a check. Here's a word you'll see a lot, and this 2 letters. Here we have our fa, and this is a ya, long vowel e. This word is fi. It's a good word to learn. Fi, very common word. Fi means in. Okay? The great thing about this word is you can make this all in one nice stroke and then put the dots on it. All right? So I think fa jumps right out at us, and should have no problem with that. Let's look at our next letter. Okay, our next letter is going to look a lot like the fa, except there's going to be some slight differences. Now, if you're writing very fast in handwriting, the differences are going to be minor, but technically there are differences. So you notice we began with a loop with one dot. Well, our next letter uses a similar shape. It's a similar loop with a tail, but when it's normally written and in typeface, the loop is going to be a bit fatter, less of a narrow loop, and the tail will go down a bit more. So let me show you the difference. So there's my fa. This one typically going to be fatter, and when it goes under the line, it'll tend to go under the line. Okay? And it has two dots, because I think if we didn't distinguish by the dots, these two would look very, very similar. So there is some difference, particularly at the end of the word. You're going to see this dip down more, and it is somewhat fatter. Now, reality, when people are writing fast, you'll be hard-pressed to tell the difference between the two. Everything else is going to work the same way. It's going to connect in like this if there's something before it. If we're in the middle of a word, we're going to have something like that, continuing on. So very similar. This letter is known as qaf. Qaf. Okay. Qaf, to give you an idea, typically when words with this letter are transliterated into English, qaf is going to be written as a Q sound. And probably the most common place you've seen this is in the name of the country, Iraq. Iraq. Okay, there's no such place as Iraq. This is a qa, not a k. The difference, this is different than the sound of k. Notice this sound like kite, kipper, king. You see what it does when I make that sound? It's made in the front of the mouth, okay, and you have this sound like you're almost kind of smiling and you don't want to smile, like a grimace. King, kipper, okay. Qaf, similar sound, but it's made deep in the throat. We don't really have it in English except from words like this that are transliterated from other languages, but a qa sound. And if you listen, there's sort of like a little clicking at the beginning. Qa. That's natural when you make this sound. If you practice this, it kind of makes your throat sore at the beginning, but the qa sound, okay? Easy to recognize. So thing to remember is, although it looks similar to fa, the sounds are not related at all. Let's take a look at this letter in some real words. Here we have 3 words, and hopefully our qafs jump out at you. First one here, second one here, and then we have 2 in this word. And again, you're looking for this loop, this more rounded loop with the 2 dots. If it doesn't have 2 dots, it's not a qaf. This one has a number of letters that we've learned, some of the trickier letters, and I put the vowels on it so you can note the pronunciation. Without these, it would be hard to guess the pronunciation. Let's take a look at this word. Basically, we see 2 vowels, and so we know there's going to be 2 syllables. So if we were to look at the first part, we have a qaf, and this is the short or the soft H sound, the heh. Ka. And this is a wow. Because it has a short vowel on it, we know it's a consonant, a wa. It couldn't be a vowel. Kahwa. Okay, kahwa. You may not recognize this word, but it is actually entered English. This is the word of a drink. Kahwa is coffee. That's where the word comes from. It changed a lot when it made its way into English, but that's kahwa. Okay, let's look at this one. Seen, no problem. An oo sound and a qaf. This is probably a word you recognize. If you play Scrabble, this is one of the few words you can use that it has a qaf in it, or Q, excuse me. So we have souk. Souk is a market. I mean, literally an open-air bazaar or just any kind of a market. Okay, now this one, similar sound to it, the ook, but notice we have two, okay? And this word is barkuk, barkuk. Notice the difference between if I said barkuk, like if I used K's in there, barkuk versus barkuk. Like all the emphatic sounds makes the vowels deeper. Barkuk, barkuk is a plum, okay? It's believed by some people believe this is where the word Albuquerque, the name of the city, comes from through Spanish. Okay, so there's our qafs and our fas. The main thing to listen for this, it's easy to confuse it with a K sound. So listen to here if you hear that deep, deep sort of clicking in the throat. Ka, ka, kahwa versus kahwa. Okay, and again, it has the effect on the vowel. Notice this is kahwa versus ka. I can't do a deep cough and then put an a after it. Okay. All right, so you'll have several exercises to practice with that. The main thing with cough, also, don't confuse it with a kha. They're both variations on a K sound, but a kha is made in the top of your mouth. This is made down here. Now, you may be saying to me, how could I confuse this sound with a K? We don't have a letter for K yet. Well, that is our next and third letter of this lesson. All right, our third consonant today is called kaf, and as the sound implies, it's like the K sound in English, so it's made from the front of the mouth. So that's pretty easy to pronounce. You shouldn't have a problem with pronunciation. It doesn't look like either of our two letters we've already done, and this is a letter, kaf is a letter that has basically two distinct shapes. The shape it's going to take at the beginning and the middle really doesn't look anything like the shape it's going to be at the end. So let's start with this at the beginning of a word. Okay, this is going to be a pretty distinct shape. We haven't seen anything that looks like this. Now I want to start about halfway up, and I'm going to make an angular line and continue on. And then I'm going to add this top going in, okay, like that. Okay, notice we usually write this part first and then put the top in it. The key thing about this is it goes all the way up the line, okay, and you notice it's got a broken shape. And so what I don't want to do is write this as sort of a curve, okay, make it sloppy, because if I do, it's going to look like another letter that we're going to see. So notice it definitely has like a break. All right, there's a very definite angle to this. Okay, that's a ke at the beginning of a word. Now, the good news, in the middle of a word, it's going to look exactly the same. Obviously, you're just going to connect right into here. Okay, no difference. And there really isn't another letter that looks quite like this, so it's easy to recognize. No dots on this one, and there's no form of this that has dots in Arabic. There are other languages that use a version of this. Now, at the end of a word or by itself, it's going to look very different. Okay, and this is sort of an unusual shape. We haven't seen anything like it. I'm going to start from the top of my line, go down, and I come back up a little bit, and I put this in the center. Okay, this is not a separate mark. It's not an accent or a vowel. It's actually part of the letter. If I leave that off, I don't have a letter. It just happens to be in there. Some people think that this is supposed to look like a miniature version of this. It might, okay, but this is the form it's going to look like at the end of a word. Pretty distinct. Just realize these are the same two letters. Kind of the way I remember that is if you took this and sort of broke this line right here, you get something that looks like that. So let's look at this in some actual words. Okay, here are our three words, and hopefully the kafs will jump right out at you. First one is at the beginning. We can tell by this broken shape here. The rest of the letters we should recognize. Notice a short vowel I in there. Ki, tab, kitab, kitab. Very important word to learn. Kitab is a book. Kitab. Okay, here we have another one. Notice there's definitely the kafs. Remember, all the kafs are going all the way to the top. Okay, I have a meme, a short vowel. I have a sukoon here indicating there's no vowel on this, so this gives us two syllables. Mak, mak, very common. Maktab, maktab, maktab. Okay, a maktab is an office or a desk. And my last one, I have a sheen, and notice the kaf at the end. Looks very different than these others, other than it comes all the way to the top, but this is the same letter. Shek. And remember, this is just part of the letter. It's not adding anything. Okay? Shek, shek. And notice this is the kaf, kaf right from the front of my mouth, just like a K in English. Shek, not shak. Shak is a different word, would be coming from here. Okay, you have enough with these 3 letters to do the exercises, practice them, and come back. We'll learn some more things, but good luck. We'll see you in a little while.